Yes, it's working properly. My 3 hour is like 30 minutes. That's why. I appreciate your determination. You are waiting. Oh my god. Thank you. Thanks a lot. Five strategies for becoming a master persuader. The following five strategies distills from the example of the greatest influence in history. The following five strategies, distilled from the example of the greatest influencer in history, are designed to help you focus more deeply on your targets and create the kinds of emotional effect that will help lower people's resistance. It would be wise to pull all five into practice. Transform yourself into a deep listener in the normal flow of conversation, your attention is divided. We hear parts of what other people are saying in order to flow and keep the conversation going. At the same time, we are planning that we will say next. In the same time, we are planning that we will say next some exciting story of our own, or we are even daydreaming about something irrelevant. The reason of this is simple. We are more interested in our own thought, feelings, and experiences than in those of the other person. If these were not the case, we find in those of the other person, in those of the other person. If this were not the case, we would find it relatively easy to listen with full attention. If this were not the case, we would find it relatively easy to listen with full attention. The usual prescription is to talk less and listen more, but this is meaningless advice as long as we prefer our own internal monologue. The only solution is to somehow be motivated to reverse this dynamic. Think of it this way: you know your own thoughts only too well. You are really surprised your mind tends to circle obviously around the same subject, but each person you encounter represent an undiscovered country full of surprises. Imagine for a moment that you could step inside people's mind, and what an amazing journey that could be. People who seem quiet and dull often have the strangest inner lives for you to explore. People who seems quiet and dull often have the strangest inner lives for you to explore. Even with books and fools, you can educate yourself as to the origins and natures of their flaw. Transforming yourself into a deep listener will not only prove more amusing as you open your mind to their mind, but will also provide the most invaluable lessons about human psychology. Once you are motivated to listen, the rest is relatively simple. You cannot make the strategic purpose behind your listening too obvious. The other person has to feel it is lively exchange, even though in the end they may be even though in the end they may do 80% of the talking. For this purpose, you must not barrage them with questions that make it feel like a job interview. Instead, pay attention to their non-verbal cues. You will see their eyes light up when certain topics are mentioned. You must guide the conversation in that direction. People will become chatty without realizing. Almost everyone likes to talk about their childhood, their family, their ins and outs of their work, or some cause that is dear to them. An occasional question or comment play off of something they have said. An occasional question or comment plays off something they have said. You are deeply absorbed in what they say, but you must feel and appear but you must feel and appear relaxed listening. So you convey that you are listening by maintaining relatively consistent eye contact and nodding as they talk. The best way to signal how deeply you are listening is to occasionally say something that mirror what they said, but in your own word and filtered through your own experience. In the end, the more they talk, the more they will reveal about their insecurities and unmet desire. Your goal is to make them come away from the encounter feeling better about themselves. Your goal is to make them come away your goal is to make them come away from the encounter feeling better about themselves. You have let them be the star of the show. You have drawn out of them the writer, more fun loving side of their personality. They will love you for this and will look forward to the next encounter. They will love you for this and will look forward to the next encounter. As they become increasingly relaxed in your presence, you will have great latitude for planting ideas and influencing their behavior. You will have planting ideas and influencing their behavior. In fact, people with the proper mood, as social animals, we are extremely susceptible to the moods of other people. This gives us the power to subtly infuse into people the appropriate mood for influencing them. If you are relaxed and anticipating a pleasure experience, this will communicate itself and have a mirror like effect on the other person. One of the best attitude to adapt for this purpose is one of complete indulgence. You do not judge other people, you accept them as they are. Right? Yeah, I read another book, but after finishing this book, because once I started a book, I have to complete it, no? Or there is no meaning to leave that book in the middle. So once I complete this book, you suggest me a better book, then I'll read it. Okay? हेलो राज। राज ये बुक है द लॉ ऑफ ह्यूमन नेचर के ऊपर, द ह्यूमन नेचर के ऊपर है ये बेसिकली। Felix, this book is human nature, is about human nature. that one day you will become a psychologist. See what you wrote there? Like it's about human deception. Hmm. In the novel, the ambassador, the writer Henry James paint the portrait of James paint the portrait of this idea in the form of Marie de Mary de Bonnet, an older French woman of impeccable manners who surreptitiously uses an American named Lambert Strather to help her in a love affair. From the very moment he meets her, Strather is captivated. She seems a mix of lucidity and mystery. She listen deeply to what he says, and without responding, give him the feeling she completely understand him. She involves him in her empathy. She act from the beginning as if they have become good friends, but it is in her manner, nothing she says. He called her indulgent spirit a beautiful, conscious mildness, and he has a hypnotic power over him. Well, before she even asks for his help, he is completely under her spell and will do nothing for her. Such an attitude replicates the ideal mother figure unconditionally in her love. It is not expressed so much in word as in looks and body language. It works equally well on men and women and has an hypnotic effect on almost anyone. A variation of this is to infect people with a warm feeling of rapport through laughter, warm feeling of rapport through laughter, rapport through laughter and scared pleasure, rapport through laughter and scared pleasure. Lyndon Johnson was the master of this. Of course, he used alcohol which flowed freely in his office, his target never knowing that his own drink were greatly watered down so he could retain control of himself. His body jokes and colorful anecdote created a comfortable club-like atmosphere for men. It was hard to resist the mood he set. Johnson could also be quite physical, often wrapping his arm around a man's shoulder, frequently touching him on the arm. Many studies on nonverbal cues have demonstrated the incredible power that a simple touch of people's hand or arms can have in an interaction, making them think positive things about you without their ever being aware of the source of their good opinion. Such gentle tap establishes a feeling of visceral rapport as long as you do not maintain eye contact, which will give it too much of sexual connotation. Keep in mind that your expectation about people are communicated to them non-verbally. It has been demonstrated, for instance, that teachers who expect great things from their pupils can The teacher who expects greater things from their pupils can, without ever saying anything, have a positive effect on their work and grades. By feeling particularly excited when you are meeting someone, you will communicate this to him or her in a powerful way. If there is a person of whom you will eventually ask a favor, try imagining him or her in the best light, generous and caring. If that is possible, somehow claim to get result by simply thinking the other person is handsome or good looking. Number three, confirm their self opinion. Recall the universal quality of the self opinion of people with high self opinion. Here's how to approach each one of them. Autonomy. No attempt at influence can ever work if people feel in any way that they are being coerced or manipulated. They must choose to do whatever it is you want them to do, or they must at least experience it as their choice. The more deeply you can create this impression, the greater your chance of success. In the novel Tom Sawyer, the 12-year-old protagonist of the same name is portrayed as an extremely savvy boy raised by his aunt with an uncanny sensitivity to human nature. Guys, what is the meaning of uncanny? The spelling is UNCANNY. With an uncanny sensitivity to human nature. Despite his cleverness, with an uncanny sensitivity to human nature. With an uncanny sensitivity to human nature. Despite his cleverness, Tom is always getting into trouble. The second chapter, sensitive to human. Despite his cleverness, Tom is the uncanny sensitivity to human nature. Despite his cleverness, Tom is always getting into trouble. The second chapter of the book begins with Tom being punished for getting in a fight. Instead of spending a hot summer Saturday afternoon messing around with his friend and swimming in the river, Tom has to whitewash the very large fence in the front of the house. As he started the job, his friend Ben Roger walks by, eating a delicious looking apple. Ben is as mischievous as Tom, and seeing him at this tedious score, he decided to torment him by asking him if he is planning on going for a swim that afternoon, knowing full well he can't. Tom pretended to feign deep interest in his work. Now Ben is curious. He asked Tom if he is seriously more interested in painting the fence than in having some fun. Tom, if he asked Tom if he is seriously more interested in painting the fence than in having some fun. That's such Tom finally addressed him while still keeping an eye on his work. His aunt would not give such a job to just anyone. He said, "It is what people see first of their house when they pass by. This is a very important job that won't come up again for many years." In the past, he and his friend painted something on fence and got into trouble. Now he can do so freely. It is a challenge, a test of skill, and yes, he enjoys it. Swimming can be done any old weekend, but not this. Ben asked if he can try his hand. Ben asked if he can try his hand to see what Tom's means. After several pleas, Tom finally relented. Only after Ben's offer him his apple, soon other boys approach Tom and does the same cell job on them, accumulating more pieces of fruits and toys. An hour later, we see Tom lying in the shade while a whole team of friends finishes the job for him. An hour later, we see Tom lying in the shade while a whole team of friends finishes the job for him. Tom used basic psychology to get what he wanted. First, he got Ben to reinterpret this job. First, he got Ben to reinterpret this job, not by saying anything but through his absorbed attention in the task and his body language. The task must. Light uncanny means strange. Okay. The uncanny sensitivity to human nature is strange. Thank you. Okay. Come. Write many more chapter. So So, how fast you write three chapters? The task must be something interesting. Second, he framed the job as a test of skill and intelligence. The task must be something interesting. Second, he framed the job as a test of skill and intelligence. A rare opportunity, something that would appeal to any competitive boy. And finally, as he knew, once the neighborhood boy saw others at the task, they would want to join in, making it a group activity. Nobody wanted to be left out. Tom could have pleaded with dozens of friends to help him and gotten nowhere. Instead, he framed it in such a way that they wanted to do the work. They came to him begging for the job. Your attempt at influence must always follow a similar logic. How can you get others to perceive the favor you want to ask for as something they already desire? Framing as framing it as something pleasurable, as a rare opportunity, and as something other people want to do will generally have the proper effect. Another variation on this is to appeal directly to people's competitive instinct. In 1948, the director Billy Wilder was casting for this new film, A Foreign Affair, which was to be set in Berlin just after the war. One of the main characters was a woman named Erika von Slaughter, a German cabaret singer with suspicious tie to various Nazis during the war. Wilder knew that Marlene Marlene Dietrich would be the perfect actress to play the part, but Dietrich had publicly expressed his intense dislike of anything having to do with the Nazis and had worked hard for various allied causes. When first approached about the roles, he found it too distasteful, and that was the end of the discussion. Wilder did not protest or plead with her, which would have been futile given Dietrich's framed stubbornness. Instead, he told her he had found two perfect American actresses to play the part, but he wanted her opinion on which would be better. But he wanted, but he wanted her opinion on which on which would be better. Would she view their test? Would she view their test, feeling bad that she had turned down her old friend Wilder? Dietrich, Dietrich naturally agreed to this, but Wilder had cleverly tested two well-known actresses whom he knew would be quite terrible for the role, making a mockery of the part of a sexy German cabaret singer. The ploy worked like a charm. The very competitive Dietrich was aghast at their performances and immediately volunteered to do the part herself. Finally, when giving people gift or reward as possible means of winning them over to your side, it is always best to give smaller gift or reward than larger one. Larger gift make it too apparent that you are trying to buy their loyalty, which will offend people's sense of independence. Some might accept the large gift out of need, but later they will feel resentful or suspicious. A smaller gift have a better effect. People can tell themselves they deserve such thing and are not being bought or bribed. In fact, such smaller reward spread out over time will bind people to you in a much greater way than anything lavish. Will people to you in a much greater way. Will bind people to you in a much greater way than anything lavish. Mm. Hi, Asri. What could I do if there is written about, if written in this page about love? I just go through it now. एसटी हम ह्यूमन नेचर के ऊपर पढ़ रहे हैं. And Bharat, don't feel sad. You told me that you are writing this book and it's not about me. So no need to take that. It's all over. Why are you sad? You are on chapter 3 now. Just write it. Maybe light is on a manipulative tactic or something else. This totally depend on nature of human, na? So let's go. एसटी नहीं, अभी तो नहीं सुना, थोड़ी देर में, हाफ एन आवर के बाद सुना. अच्छा, light is not about human nature, then it's about ghost nature. Okay, you disagree. I don't know why are you not liking this book. This book is quite too good. No harm, nothing at all, and no negativity. Only a genuine nature of humans. See, it's cover all the important topics. intelligence. Intelligence. When you disagree with another person and impose, see, right? See, you told about disagree, na? You disagree with this book, no, with this book that is not about human nature. Then here comes the line. When you disagree with another person, see, like our phone, this book also listen about our chat. Manipulative. Yeah, humans are manipulative. So what's wrong with this? When you disagree with another person and impose your contrary opinion, when you disagree with another person and impose your contrary opinion, you are implying that you know, that you have thought things through more rationally. People challenged in this way will then naturally become even more attached to their opinion. You can prevent this by being more natural, by being more neutral. You can prevent this by being more neutral, as if this opposing ideas is simply something you are entertaining and it could be wrong. But better still, you can go much further. You see their point of view and agree with it. Winning argument is really worth the effort. With their intelligence flattered, have some room to generate to gently alter their opinion or have lowered their defenses for a request for help. The 19th century British Prime Minister The 19th century British Prime Minister and novelist Benjamin um, Disraeli, Disraeli conceived of an even cleverer ploy when he wrote, "If you wish to win a man's heart, allow him to confute you." Confute? Uh, can anyone tell me the meaning of confute? Confute. Thank you, ST. Good night. Confuse. If you wish to win a man's heart, allow him to confute you. You do this by beginning to disagree with a large target about a subject, even with some vehemence. Some vehemence. And also, please tell me the meaning of vehemence. Vehemence. You do this by beginning to disagree with the target about a subject. You do this by beginning a disagree with a target about a subject, even with some vehemence, and then slowly come to seeing their point of view, thereby confirming not only their intelligence but also their own powers of influence. They will ever they feel ever so slightly superior to you, which is precisely what you want. They feel ever so slightly superior to you, which is precisely what you want. They will now be doubly vulnerable to a counter move of your own. You can create a similar effect by asking people for advice. The implication is that you respect their wisdom and experience. In 1782, the French playwright Pierre Augustin Caron de Beaumarchais put the finishing touches on his great masterpiece, The Marriage of Figaro. The Marriage of Figaro. The approval of King Louis XVI was required, and when he read the manuscript, he was furious. Such a play would lead to a revolution, he said. This man mock everything that must be respected in a government. After much pressure, he agreed to have it privately performed in a theater at Versailles. The aristocratic audience loved it. The king allowed more performances, but he directed his censors to get their hands on the script and alter its words passage before it was presented to the public. To bypass this, Beaumarchais commissioned a tribunal of academies, intel- intellectuals, courtiers, and government ministers to go over the play with him. A man who attended the meeting wrote, M.D. Beaumarchais announced that he would submit unreservedly to every cut and change that the gentlemen and even the ladies present might deem appropriate. Even wanted Everyone wanted to add something of his own. M.D. Brutule suggested a witticism. Beaumarchais accepted it and thanked him. It will save the fourth act. Mim de Matignon contributed the color of the little page ribbon. The color was adopted and became fashionable. Beaumarchais was indeed a very clever courtier. Beaumarchais was indeed a very clever courtier by allowing others to make even the smallest changes to his masterpiece. He greatly flattered their egos and their intelligence. He flattered the egos and intelligence. Of course, on the large charges later requested by Louis censors, Beaumarchais did not relent. By then, he had so won over the members of his own tribunal that they stridently light confused means prove something wrong. Okay. Vehemently, extremely. Okay. Okay. Thank you. Can you tell me the meaning of this stridently? Spelling is Stridently. Stridently. Confused may prove something wrong. Okay. Means if you wish to win a man's heart, allow him to confuse you. Prove something wrong. Prove something wrong. Prove something wrong. Okay. Vehemently. Okay. Yeah. Vehemently, extremely. अच्छा. Extremely. Extremely. नहीं vehemently. हाँ, extremely. सही. Stridently means loud. Means loud. Own tribunal that they stridently defend him. That they loudly defend him. Stridently loud. Thank you. Thank you, love. Thank you, Light, once again. You make it easier for me. Thank you. He's saying human nature is not, do not exist. He's saying human natures do not exist. Huh? In which line he is saying this? And Louis back to back down. Loading people defenses in this way on matters that are not so important will give you great latitude to move them in the direction you desire and get them to concede to your desires on more important matters. Goodness. In your daily thought, we constantly comfort ourselves. In our daily thought, we constantly comfort ourselves as to the moral nature of our action. Comfort ourselves as to the moral nature of our action. If we are employees of a company, we see ourselves as good team member. If we are bosses, we treat people well, or at least we pay or support them well. We pay or support them well. We help the right causes. In general, we do not like to see ourselves as selfish and narrowly focused on our own agenda. Just as important, we want others to see us in the light. Just as important, we want others to see us in this light. Look at social media and how people will make a display of supporting the best causes. Few people give to charities anonymously. They want their names loudly advertised. You must never inadvertently cast doubt on this saintly self-opinion. To make positive use of this trait in people, frame what you are asking them to do as part of a larger cause that they can participate in. They are not merely buying clothes but helping the environment or keeping jobs local. In taking this action, people can feel better about themselves. In taking this action, people can feel better about themselves. Keep it subtle. If you're trying to get recruit for a job, let others spread the message about the cause. Make it appear proposal and popular. Make people want to join the group instead of having to plead with them. Pay great attention to the word and levels you use. It is better, for instance, to call someone a team member than an employee. To put yourself in the inferior one down position, you can commit some relatively harmless fox pass, even offend people in a more pronounced way, and then ask for forgiveness. By asking for this, you imply their moral superiority, a position people love to occupy. Now they are vulnerable to suggestion. Finally, if you need a favor from people, do not remind them of what you have done for them in the past, trying to stimulate feelings of gratitude. Gratitude is rare because it's tend to remind us for our helplessness, our dependence on others. We like to feel independent. Instead, remind them of the good things they have done for you in the past. This will help confirm their self opinion. Yes, I am generous. And once reminded, they will want to continue to live up to this image and do yet another good deed. A similar effect can come from suddenly forgiving your enemies. A similar effect can come from suddenly forgiving your enemies and forging a reproachment. In the emotional turmoil this creates, they will feel obligated to live up to the high opinion you have now shown toward them, and you will be extra motivated to prove themselves worthy. nice to try it. Ali, their insecurities. Everyone has particular insecurities. Allay their insecurities. Everyone has particular insecurities about their looks, their creative power, their masculinity, their power status, their uniqueness, their popularity, etc. Your task is your task is to get a bed to get a bead on these insecurities through the various conversation you draw them into. Your task is to get a bead on these insecurities through the various conversations you draw them into. Once you have identified them, you must first be extra careful not to trigger them. People have grown sensitive attenate for any word or body language they might cast doubt on their physical appearances, on their popularity, or whatever their insecurity may be. Be aware of this and be on guard. Second, the best strategy is to praise and flatter those qualities that people. The best strategy is to praise and flatter those qualities that people are most insecure about. We all crave this, even if we somehow see through the person who is praising us. This is because we live in a tough world in which we are continually judged, and yesterday's triumph is easily followed by tomorrow's failure. We never really feel secure. It is the if the flattery is done right, we feel that the flatterer like us, and we tend to like people who like us. The key to successful flattery is to make it strategic. If I know that I am particularly awful at basketball, praising me for my basketball skill in any way will ring false. But if I'm uncertain about my skill, if I imagine I am perhaps not really so bad, then any flattery on that score can work wonders. Look for those qualities people are uncertain about and offer reassurance. Lord Chesterfield advised his son in his letter, later published in 1774. Cardinal Richelieu, who was undoubtedly the ablest statesman of his time, had the idle vanity of being thought the best poet too. He envied the great Cornell his reputation. Those therefore who flattered skillfully said little to him of abilities in state affair, or at least but an passant, and as it might naturally occur, but the incense which they gave him, the smoke of which they knew would turn his head in their favor, was as a poet. If your target are powerful and quite Machiavellian, they might feel somewhat insecure about their moral qualities. Flattering them about their clever manipulation might backfire. But obvious praise of their goodness would be too transparent because they know themselves too well. Instead, some strategic flattery about how you have benefited from their advice and how their criticisms helped improve your performance will appeal to their self opinion of being tough yet fair, but a good heart underneath the gruff exterior. It is always better to praise people for their effort, not their talent. When you extol people for their talent, there is a slight deprecation implied, as if they were simply lucky for being born with natural skill. Instead, everyone likes to feel that they earn their good fortune through hard work. Instead, everyone likes to feel that they earn their good fortune through hard. Instead, everyone likes to feel that they earn their good fortune through hard work, and that is where you must aim your praise. With people who are your equals, you have more room to flatter. With those who are your superior, it is best to simply agree with their opinion and validate their wisdom. Flattering your boss is too transparent. Never follow up your praise with a request for help or whatever it is you are after. Whatever it is you are after, you flattered is a your flattery is a setup and require the Your flattery is a setup and requires the passage of some time. Do not appear too ingratiating in the first encounter or two. Better to sow even better to sow even a little coldness which will give you room to warm up. Better to sow even a little coldness which will give you room to warm up. After a few days you have grown to like this person, and then a few flattering words aimed at their insecurities will begin to melt their resistance. If possible, get third parties to pass along your compliment as if they had simply overheard them. Never be too lavish in your praise or use absolute. A clever way to cover your tracks is to mix in some small criticism of the person or their work, nothing that will trigger insecurities but enough to give your praise a more realistic hue. I love your screenplay, although I feel Act 2 might need a little work. Do not say, your latest book is so much better than the last one. Be very careful when people ask you for their opinion about their work or something related to their character or their looks. They do not want the truth, they want support and confirmation given as realistically as possible. They want support and confirmation given as realistically as possible. Be happy to supply this for them. You must seem as sincere as possible. It would be you must seem as sincere as possible. It would be best to choose qualities to praise them you actually admire, if at all possible. If any event, what gives people away is the non-verbal cues, praise along with stiff body language, or a fake smile, or eye glancing elsewhere, trying to feel some of the good emotions you are expressing. So any exaggeration will seem less obvious. Keep in mind that your target must have a relatively high self opinion. If it is low, the flattery will not jive with how they feel about themselves and will ring hollow. Whereas for those of high self opinion, it will seem only natural. Use people resistance and stubbornness. Some people are particularly resistant to any form of influence. They are most often people with deeper levels of insecurity and low self opinion. This can manifest itself in a rebellious attitude. Such type feel as if it is them against the world. They must assert their will at all cost and resist any kind of change. They will do the opposite of what people suggest. They will seek advice for a particular problem or symptom only to find dozens of reasons of why the advice given won't work for them. The best thing to do is to play a game of mental judo with them. In judo, you do not counter people's move with the thrust of your own, but rather encourage them aggressive energy, resistance in order to make them fall on their own. Here are some ways to put this into practice in everyday's life. In everyday life, use the emotion. In the book Change, the therapist author Paul Wetzelwick, John H. Wickland, and Richard Fisk discuss the cause of a rebellious teenager suspended from school by the principal. because he was caught dealing drugs. He was still to do his homework at home but was forbidden to be on campus. He was still to do his homework at home but was forbidden to be on campus. He was still to do his homework at home but was forbidden to be on campus. This this would be this would put a big dent in his drug dealing business. The boy burned with a desire to get vengeance. Vengeance. Machiavellian. Okay, thank you. Machiavellian. Machiavellian. Okay. Have you read the Gita Mahabharata? Yes, right. I read Gita and Mahabharata. In our school, they taught us Gita. Sorry, Mahabharata. This was in our syllabus. And after completing this school, I bought Gita and read it. Not completely, but half of the Gita I read. From not half. I told one fourth total. In their book, there's total 18 chapter I think, and I read only fourth adhyay. According to me, Krishna did all the right things because he never do the wrong things, because we are all their child, and so God is like our mother father, and mother father do not do anything wrong with their children. So whatever Krishna did, that is totally right for me. I don't know what's other opinion. Maybe they don't agree with me or something else. But I genuinely feel that Krishna, whatever Krishna did, is totally right. Uh, like, can you tell me the meaning of this word, vengeance? Vengeance. Does it make it all for others to do the same? No, if other people trying to do the same thing like Krishna, they will not like they will not able to do the same thing, because we humans are we humans have that feeling of uh, selfishness, do most of the things for our own self and our own near and dear one. So apart from Krishna, if humans are do like him, na, if humans are started doing like him, they don't do the good things for others like Krishna did. Vengeance means badla. Okay, thank you. The boy burned with the desire to get vengeance. Thank you. The mother consulted a therapist who told her to do the following. Explained to the son that the principal believed. The mother consulted a therapist who told her to do the following. Explained to the son that the principal believed only students who attend class in person could do well. Believe only students who attend class in person could do well. In the principal's mind, by keeping the boy away from school, he was ensuring he would fail. If he did better by working at home than in class, This would embarrass the principal. If he did better by working at home than in class, this would embarrass this would embarrass the principal. Better to not try too hard this semester and get on the good side of the principal by proving him right. Of course, such advice was designed to play into his emotion. Now he desired nothing more than to embarrass the principal, and so threw himself into his homework with great energy. The goal of the therapist all along. In essence, the idea is not to counter people's strong emotion, but to move with them and find a way to channel them in a productive direction. Use the languages. The therapist Milton Erickson described the following case that he had treated. A husband came to him for advice, although he seemed quite set on doing what he wanted anyway. He and his wife came from very religious family and had married mostly to please their parent very religious family and had married mostly to please their parents. Thus, the husband and wife were very religious as well. Their honeymoon, however, had been a disaster. They found sex very awkward and did not feel like they were in love. The husband decided it was not anyone's fault, but that they should get a friendly divorce. Erickson readily agreed with him and suggested exactly how to bring about this friendly divorce. He instructed him to reserve a room at a hotel. They were to have one final friendly night together before the divorce. They were also to have one last friendly glass of champagne, one last friendly kiss between them, and so on. These instructions virtually ensured the wife seductions by her husband. As Erickson had hoped, the husband followed his instruction. The couple had an exciting evening together and they happily decided to remain married. Exciting evening together and they happily decided to remain married. Erickson intuited that the husband did not really want to divorce, and that the two of them felt awkward because of their religious background. They were both deeply insecure about their physical desire, yet resistance to any kind of change. Erickson used the husband's language and he desired for divorce, but found a way to gently redirect the energy towards something much different. When you use people's word back at them, it was a hypnotic effect. How can they not follow what you suggest when it is exactly the word they have used? Use the rigidity. A pawnbroker's son once came to the great 18th century Zen master Hawkwind with the following problem. He wanted to get his father to practice Buddhism, but the man pretended to be too busy with his bookkeeping to have time for even a single or prayer. Too busy with his bookkeeping to have time for even a single chant or prayer. Hawkins knew the pawnbroker. He was an inverted miser who was only using this as an excuse to avoid religion, which he considered a waste of time. Hawking advised the boys to tell his father that the Zen master himself would buy from him each prayer and chant that he did on a daily basis. Would buy from him each prayer and chant that he did on a daily basis. Oh, dearie. It was strictly a business deal. Of course, a pawn broker was very happy with the deal. He could set his son up and make money in the process. Each day he presented Hawkins with this bill of the prayer, and Hawkins duly paid him. But on the seventh day he failed to show up. It seemed that he had gotten so caught up in the chanting that he had forgotten to count how many prayers he had done. A few days later he admitted to but on the seventh day he failed to show up. It seemed that he had forgotten so caught up in the chanting that he had forgotten to count up how So he had forgotten, so caught up in the chanting that he had forgotten to count how many prayer he had done. A few days later, he admitted to Hawkins he had become completely taken up with the chants, felt so much better, and did not. He had become completely taken up with the chant, felt so much better, and did not need to be paid anymore. He soon became a very generous, so much better, and did not pay to be, and did not need to be paid. Taken up with the chant, felt so much better, and did not need to be paid anymore. He soon became a very generous donor to Hawkins Temple. When people are rigid in their opposition to something, it seems from deep fear of change and the uncertainty it could bring. They must have everything on their terms and feel in control. You play into their hands if you try with all your advice to encourage change. It gives them something to react against and justify their rigidity. They become more stubborn, stop fighting with such people, and use the actual nature of their rigid behavior to affect a gentle change that could lead to something greater. On their own, they discover something new, like the power of Buddhist prayer, and on their own, they might take this further, all set up by your judo maneuver. Keep in mind the following: people often won't do what other ask them to do because they simply want to assert their will. If you heartily agree with their rebellion and tell them to keep on doing what they are doing, if you heartily agree with their rebellion and tell them to keep on doing what they are doing, it now means that if they do so, they are following your advice, which is distasteful to them. They may very well rebel again and assert their will in the opposite direction, which is what you wanted all along. Which is what you wanted all along. The essence of reverse psychology. The essence of reverse psychology. The flexible mind self strategies. If you find it frustrating with people, you find it frustrating when people resist your good ideas out of seed stubbornness, but you are largely unaware of how the same problem, your own stubbornness, afflict you and limit your creative power. Your own stubbornness afflict you and limit your creative power. Your own stubbornness afflict you and limit your creative power. As children, our mind were remarkably flexible. We could learn at a rate that far surpasses our adult capacities. We could learn at a rate that far surpasses our adult capacity. We can attribute much of the source of this power to our we can attribute much of the source of this power to our feelings of weakness and vulnerability. Sensing our inferiority in relation to those older than us, we feel highly motivated to learn. We were also genuinely curious and hungry for our new information. We were open to the influence of parents. We were open to the influence of parents, peers, and teachers. We were often we were open to the influence of we were open to the influence of parents. We were open to the influence of parents, peers, and teachers. In adolescence, many of us had the experience of falling under the sway of a great book or writer. We become entrenched by the novel ideas in the book, and because we were so open to influence, these early encounters, while exciting ideas, sank deeply into our minds and become part of our own thought processes affecting us. affecting us decades affecting us decades after we absorb them. Affecting us decades after we absorb them, such influences enriched our mental landscape, and in fact, our intelligence depend on the ability to absorb the lesson and ideas of those who are older and wiser. In fact, our intelligence depend on the ability to absorb the lesson and ideas of those who are older and wiser. Just as the body tighten with the age, however, so does the mind, and just as our sense of weaknesses and vulnerability motivated the desire to learn, see does our creeping sense of superiority close us off to new ideas and influences. Some may advocate that we all become more skeptical skeptical in the modern world, but in fact, a far greater danger comes from the increasing closing of the mind that afflict us as individual as we get older and seem to be affecting our culture in general. Let us define the ideal state of the mind as one that retains the flexibility of youth along with the reasoning power of the adult. Such a mind is open to the influence of others. Such a mind is open to the influence of others. And just as you use strategies to melt people's resistance, you must do the same on yourself, working to soften up your rigid mental pattern. Working to soften up your rigid mental pattern. To reach such an ideal, we must first adopt the key tenet of the Socratic philosophy. One of Socrates' earliest admirers was a young man named uh, Caraphon. Frustrated, the more Athenians did not revere Socrates as he himself did. Caraphon visited the oracle of Delphi and posed a question: is there a wiser man than Socrates in all of Athens? The oracle answered no. Caraphon felt vindicated and in his admiration of Socrates and rushed to tell his mentor the good news. Socrates, however, being a humble man, was not at no. I heard this name first time, right? Who is he? Socrates, however, being a humble man, was not at all pleased to hear this and was determined to prove the oracle wrong. Was humble and all pleased to hear this and was determined to prove the oracle wrong. He visited many people, each eminent in their own field, politics, the art, business, and asked them many questions. When they kept to knowledge of their field, they seemed quite intelligent, but then they would expatiate. Can you tell me the meaning of expatiate? Expatiate. But then they would expatiate on all kind of subject about which they clearly knew nothing. But then they would expatiate on all kind of subject about which they clearly knew nothing. On which subject they merely spouted the conventional wisdom. They did not think through any of these ideas. Finally, Socrates had to admit that the oracle was indeed accurate. He was wiser than all the others because he was aware of his own ignorance. Over and over again, he examined and re examined his own ideas, seeing inadequacies and infantile emotion. Socrates. 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 Okay, Socrates. What is the meaning of Socrates? Socrates. Okay. Yeah. Infantile. Infantile emotion. Socrates. What is the meaning of this? His motto in life had become the unexamined life is not worth living. His motto in life had become the unexamined life is not worth living. The charm of uh, Socrates, Socrates. What made him so devilishly fascinating to the youth of Athens was a supreme openness of his mind. In essence, Socrates assumed the weaker, vulnerable position of the ignorant child, always asking questions. Socrates assumed the weaker, vulnerable position of the ignorant child, always asking questions. Thinking of it this way, we like to scoff at the superstitious and irrational ideas that most people held in the 17th century. Imagine how those of the 25th century will scoff at ours. Our knowledge of the world is limited despite the advances of science. Our ideas are conditioned by the prejudice instilled in us by our parents, our own, by our culture, and by the historical period we live in. They are further limited by the increasing rigidity of the mind. A bit more humility about what we know would make us all more curious and interested in a wide range of ideas. When it comes to the ideas and opinions you hold, see them as toys or building blocks that you are playing with. Some you will some you will keep, other you will knock down, but your spirit remain flexible and playful. To take this further, you can adopt a strategy promulgated by Friedrich Nietzsche's. Nietzsche's. He who really wants to get to know something new, be it a person, an event, a book. He who really wants to get to know something new, be it a person, an event, a book, does well to entertain it with all possible love and to avert his eyes quickly from everything in it his field. In it, he find inimical, repellent falls indeed to banish it from mind, so that for example he allows the author of a book the longest start, and then like one watching a race desire with beating heart that he may reach his goal. For with this procedure one penetrate to the heart of the new thing, to the point that actually moves it, and precisely this is what is meant by getting to know it. If one has gone this far, reason can afterward make it reservation that overestimation, that temporary suspension of the critical pendulum was only an artifice for luring forth the soul of the thing. Even in writing that is inimical to your own ideas, there's often something that rings true, which represents the soul of the thing. Opening yourself up to its influence in this way should become part of your mental habits, allowing you to better understand things, even to criticize them properly. Sometime, however, that soul will move you as well and gain some influence, enriching your mind in the process. Upon occasion, it is good to let go of your deepest set of rules and restrictions. He was a famous Greek philosopher. Oh, he was sentenced to death for his writing. Expedite, exp- expatiate, pronounce, expatiate, expatiate. Okay, thank you. Means to write about. Means to write about. On what topic did he write that he was to sentence death? Only for writing a book. He belongs to which country? Philosophy. Greece. We want to say that person is sentenced to death because he write a book upon philosophy. Yeah. Is this true? Athens is in Greece. Can you elaborate about that person? Socrates. No, that person who was sentenced to death. That was Socrates. Socrates was sentenced to death for his opinion. Only for opinion? No, it's too bad. That ring. Around around 400 BC. I think it's 21st century. That's quite normal. At that time, king and queens rule. So they do whatever they want. There's no freedom no, at all. That's why. But he stood on what he said. What he said. that rings true, which represent the soul of the ring. Opening yourself up to its influence in this way should become a part of your mental habit, allowing you to better understanding things, even to criticize them properly. Sometimes, however, that soul will move you as well and gain some influence. Enriching your mind in this process. Upon occasion, it is good to let go of your deepest set of rules and upon occasion, it is good to let go of your deepest set of rules and restrictions. The great 14th century Zen master Vasui posted at the door of his temple a list of 33 rules his monk were to abide by or be thrown out. Many of the rules dealt with alcohol. Many of these rules dealt with alcohol, which was strictly forbidden. One night, to totally disconcert his literal minded monks, he showed up to a talk completely drunk. He never apologized or repeat it, but the lesson was simple. Such rules he never apologized or repeated, but the lessons was simple. Such rules are merely guidelines, and to demonstrate our freedom, we must violate them from time to time. Finally, he never apologized or repeated, but the lesson was simple. Such rules are merely guidelines and so demonstrate our freedom. We must violate them from time to time. Finally, when it comes to your own self opinion, try to have some ironic distance from it. Make yourself aware of its existence and how it operates within you. Come to terms with the fact that you are not as free and autonomous as you like to believe. You do conform to the opinion of the groups you belong to. You do byproduct because of subliminal influence you can be manipulated. Realize as well that you are not as good as the idealized image of your self opinion. Like everyone else, you can be quite self absorbed and obsessed with your own agenda. Like everyone else, you can be quite self absorbed and obsessed with your own agenda. With this awareness, you will not feel the need to be validated by others. Instead, you will work at making yourself truly independent, nahin, independent and concerned with the welfare of others, as opposed to staying attached to the illusion of your self opinion.